Assalamu alaikum. It's been so long, I know. I hope you remember what translation is. And I hope you're okay after a very horrible war. But alhamdulillah, I think we've all managed to, I don't know, survive one way or another what happened. And the show must go on. So we have to move on with our lives and we have to move on with our studies. Sadly and unfortunately, nothing stops in the face of education. Again, sadly and unfortunately. Okay, so like I said, or last thing we discussed before the war was I think we discussed headlines, translating headlines from English to Arabic and from Arabic to English. And today we're going to move forward with this, let's say, genre or this topic, which is related to translation. I wouldn't just say political translation, I would say media translation, not all forms of media translation, but basically we're going to move forward with news translation, the different types of news. And when I say news, you should never just think of politics alone, because news isn't only about politics. News is, you could have like, I don't know, news about sports, news about economy, news about, let's say, health, especially with the coronavirus. So anything that happens suddenly, that's a piece of news. And anything that, you know, that people feel interested in on a daily basis, that's news. The only thing that we're not going to address is the kind of news that's related to celebrities. That's we don't, I don't think you'll ever come across a situation where you're going to need to translate something that's related to celebrities, unless it's like directly related to political news in some cases. Okay, I think I sent you a couple of texts. Can I hear your voices to know that you're with me? So are you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, we are here.
Okay,
Here.
so I'm going to like explain the difference between the different types that we, like I sent you. Just give me a second. Now, sometimes we have like very, 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 very brief, short, into the point news. And this kind of news is like الأخبار العاجلة, you know? It can be written on, like on TV. If you're watching TV, it could be written on a label under or beneath the picture, the moving picture, or it could be on a website. These two were taken from a website. They, let's say, short, to the point, and you have to be like very, very, very precise. There's no room for, let's say, beautifying the language. There's no room for giving more details. There's no room for anything. You just have to be like the first to give the news. And by first to give the news, you have to be very precise, you have to be very articulate, very accurate, and to the point. So there is no room for any sort of embellishment, no room for similes, no room for metaphors. That's a piece of news, piece of information. Just tell the world this piece of information. And if we recall what happened during the war, and if you keep up with Telegram and pages like Shab, Mu'min Maqdad, or Hassan Aslayh, you would, or any other Telegram channel, you would notice that they keep sending akhbar ajila, right? and it's to the point. سماع دوي قصف في مدينة غزة، مدينة غرب غزة. So there is no room for introductions, no room for elaborations, no room for anything. And then there is the after, like the war is over, or even during the war, sometimes they post a prolonged piece of news on their website, and instead of sending you the entire piece of news on your phone, they send you a link to the website. Why? Because the channel here is supposed to keep you up posted with everything, and at the same time, if they start sending long posts on their Telegram channel, they're going to lose people's interest. So they send you the link. If you're interested, you go to the link, but they don't send you, or they don't always send you the entire piece of news or the report on Telegram. So when you translate, if you're going to translate these pieces of news, it's going to differ from wanting to translate a feature story. And by feature story, we're talking about the humanitarian journalistic story. And we're going to explain that. And it's different from translating a report. And again, it's different from translating an actual piece of news. Today, we're going to talk about these two parts when I have continuously updated short news, and then the actual longer piece of news. So let's look at number one. مقتل المشتبه في تنفيذ عملية طعن شرطية في مدينة نانتا الفرنسية متأثرا بجراح أصيب بها خلال اعتقاله. I want to make a point. Exactly with headlines, not everything you see is the best way it could have been written with. And by that, I mean, the journalists do a great job, but sometimes they're either too, they just want to get the news out. So they don't care about the structure. They don't care about what to put first or how to phrase or word their sentence or utterance. So you might feel like it doesn't sound smooth Arabic. It doesn't sound natural. It's not flowing naturally to your ear. So if you feel like that, don't feel like it's your problem, because usually it's not your problem. Usually it's the news in front of you. So what you do when you translate is that you try to avoid these sentences, and you can write something even better, even if you're not a journalist. So here we have مقتل المشتبه في تنفيذه عملية طعن شرطية في مدينة نانت الفرنسية متأثرا بجراح أصيب بها خلال اعتقاله. Now, what are the main pieces of information here? The fact that he's dead, the fact that there is a suspect, there was a stabbing, French city Nantes. No, I think Nantes is the only important part. So basically he was wounded while arrested. Yani wounded, arrested. So your job is to make sure that your target text includes these points or these pieces of information. Do you think it's important to add the word French? Do you think it's important to add the word French?
No.
Why not? Yes.
إنه ما فيش يعني اسم مدينة غير هذا الفرنسيين، فيش يعني أماكن تانية هذه المدينة.
يعني تقريبا. طيب الآن أنا عندي سؤال. لو أنا عندي بالعربي، تمام، مقال بقول مدينة القاهرة العربية أو المصرية؟
No.
ليش لا؟
Like
لأنه
it's
المقال للعرب والقاهرة معروفة للعرب.
ممتاز. لأنه أنا التارجت أودينس تبعي في النص الإنجليزي مش زي التارجت أودينس اللي في العربي، تمام؟ أو السورس أودينس اللي بالعربي. الآن السورس أودينس بالعربي ما بعرف مدينة نانت، ما يعني قليل جدا. أنا عن نفسي ما كنت بعرف إنه في مدينة اسمها نانت في فرنسا. طيب، فلما هو يحكي لي في مدينة نانت الفرنسية، كلمة فرنسية عبارة عن معلومة في النص العربي للقارئ العربي. But in English, they probably have more, let's say, they know more. They know more cities that are in Europe. They know more cities that are in England. They know why? Because they always like, they have connections. They have, the borders are open between them. So they come and go. So they probably know these cities. They know where they're located. But if you translate into Arabic, and you have to keep in mind that you need to add this piece of information if it's not found in the source text. And by that I mean, let's say famous cities like Paris, Washington, New York, these are famous cities, so you don't need to locate them in the target text if it's an Arabic target text. But if we're talking about countries that are not famous, and in the source text, it says, for example, we all know Kuala Lumpur, but let's say the city is Kuala Lumpur, and it says something happened in Kuala Lumpur. Now, in Arabic, you need to assume that people don't know where Kuala Lumpur is. And I don't, like, I'm giving Kuala Lumpur as an example, not particularly Kuala Lumpur. So in the translation of Kuala Lumpur, you might need to say Madinat Kuala Lumpur fi Malaysia. Okay, you get that? So sometimes a piece of information that is not in the source text is important to the target text audience. And vice versa, if it is important in the target text, it might not be important to the source text audience. So by saying in the target text, source target. So the source text is in Arabic and it says Madinat Nantes al-Faransiyya. In English, you don't need to say the French city of Nantes or whatever. So you don't need to locate the city. Okay, now, is it enough to say stabbing or the police officer is important? And should it be police officer or policewoman? Yeah. Should it be policewoman or police officer in the translation? وينكم؟ سامعيني؟ Yeah, it is police.
Is there, yeah, okay.
Yeah, is there what?
I want to say, like, is there like policewoman in English?
Yeah, of course.
And, yeah, I'll see.
There's a policeman, there's a policewoman. It's one word, policewoman. Okay. So yeah, it's policewoman, not police officer, not policeman. Okay, now, suspect killed. Now, do you think the sentence is accurate? Don't you think there's contradiction? Don't you think there's unnecessary ambiguity in the source text? مقتل المشتبه في تنفيذه عملية طعن شرطية في مدينة نانت. Now, the beginning of the sentence indicates that he died while executing the stabbing and then متأثرا بجراح أصيب بها خلال اعتقاله. Don't you feel like the order of information?
Yes, I feel.
Yeah?
Yeah, can I say?
Yeah.
At the beginning you feel he's a criminal, but at the end you feel like there was like a fight.
between him and the policewoman.
No, like it's let's say you don't understand whether she was arresting him. Like you don't understand, did the stabbing happen while arresting, like while being arrested by this police officer, or he did the stabbing and then another police officer came and hurt him or injured him? Do you hear me? Again, now here we have unclear information. Did the stabbing happen while he was being arrested, or was he arrested while doing the stabbing, for doing the stabbing? You get that? No? Again, الآن هو عمل عملية الطعن، بعدين إجت شرطة تانية اعتقلته، فلما اعتقلوه جرحوه فمات بسبب هاي الجراح، ولا هو أساساً كانت هذه الشرطية بدها تعتقله، فهي أثناء ما بتعتقله صار بينهم شجار وهو طعنها. it's unclear, right? فاهمين وين الambiguity؟ طبعا هذا بنفعش في خبر، خصوصا إذا إيش خبر عاجل. تمام؟ طب في هاي الحالة إيش أروح أعمل؟
read the full article or the full essay.
طب ما هم أنا ما عنديش full article.
Maybe
يعني
I will save the
هي
ambiguity.
لحظتها خبر عاجل، لحظتها خبر عاجل.
Keep the ambiguity.
Keep the ambiguity. Yeah. Excellent. So you keep the ambiguity. That's what I wanted to say. If it's ambiguous, keep it ambiguous unless you have access to the full report. If you have full access to the report immediately and you can find who did what when, go ahead and, let's say, correct the piece of information. But if you don't, keep the ambiguity the same, keep it unresolved, because you don't want to, let's say, improvise, say, I think so-and-so, and then you translate based on what you think, and then you discover that what you thought is wrong when the full report is out. So this is why I always tell you, don't add piece of information, new pieces of information. Don't like use your better judgment in order to resolve a problem in the text. If you don't know, as a translator, as a reader, keep it the same for those who would read it. Make them to not know what's being said unless you have access to the full text. And actually, we do have full access after after this piece of news was published sometime later, they posted the entire piece or the entire report. So let's read that very quickly. So look, this sentence resolves all the problems of ambiguity that we have. أوضحت المصادر أن حالة الشرطية حرجة مشيرة على أن منفذ الاعتداء تمكن من الهرب. يبقى he assaulted her، تمام؟ من غير ما هي إيش؟ فاهمين كيف؟ يعني إيش اللي صار بالأول؟ الأسولت، بعدين في حدا حاول يلقي القبض عليه وأصابه وصار مصاب، بعدين توفى بسبب هاي الإصابة. يبقى ترتيب الأحداث إلي أنا كمترجم مهم ولا مش مهم؟ مهم طبعا، لأنه بدونه ما بقدرش أترجم، بصير في عندي يعني stranded piece of information without actual information. تمام؟ انتوا هلا ايش شايفين؟ الصفحة قدامكم ايش؟
هي وأوضحت المصادر.
تمام كده الوورد؟
Yes.
تمام. طيب مين ترجم؟ مين يحكي لنا ايش طلع معه؟ ترجم؟ في حد ترجم؟ حدش ترجم؟ Nobody? The suspect in policewoman stabbing attack in Nantes was killed after he got injured while being arrested or during the arrest. Okay, did you hear the changes? So the suspect in policewoman stabbing attack in Nantes was killed after getting injured during his arrest. مين كمان؟ طيب ياسمين سمعاني؟
Yes,
ذكريني أحط لك درجة بونص.
thank you.
Okay. Policewoman stabbing suspect killed. Policewoman stabbing suspect killed. Not killed. Died. After being injured in his arrest, or after policewoman stabbing suspect died after being injured in his arrest in that's city. That's so policewoman stabbing suspect died after being injured in his arrest in Nantes. Good. في حد عنده سؤال؟ حد عنده سؤال؟ Calling once, calling twice. تمام. ليش حطيت died مش killed؟ ليش حطيت died مش killed؟
لأنه هو ما تم قتله، هو مات لأنه متأثر اعتقد، صح؟
ليش حكى في نص القصة مقتل؟ ملوش علاقة
ما
في
في
الإصابة، ملوش علاقة في الإصابة،
كلمة
له علاقة في الموضوع مش في الإصابة.
ممكن لأنه مذكور مين اللي قتله.
نعم؟
إيه،
مش مذكور مين اللي قتله.
لا عادي.
إيه،
مبين.
أظن لأنه مبدأ القتل، يعني إنه المشتبه به هو في هاي الوكالة مثلا تتعامل على إنه المشتبه به هذا هو يعني هو مجرم، فمقتل أنسب له يعني.
طيب
لكن إحنا كمترجمين مش عارفين إذا هو يعني على حق ولا مش، لا، فمضطرين نحط داي.
طيب فعليا رزان، لا مش رزان، ريما أنت جواب ريما صحيح لأنه هو المعتمد الأول. بمعنى لو أنا حكيت
زي مثلا
لو أنا حكيت killed تمام، هيك أنا مين بجرم؟
البوليس.
يعني أنا لو قلت who killed him؟ the police. did the police kill him؟ هي الفكرة إنه the police killed him ولا إنه هو he died after like being shot in his arrest. تمام؟ وأيا كان السبب، يعني أنت ما بتقدر تروح تطعن شرطية غالبا، يعني I think يعني تطعن شرطية هذا مش شيء ممكن إنه يعني إلى حد ما كلامك صحيح يا يسرى، إلى حد ما. طيب مين كانت تحكي؟ فاطمة أظن. فاطمة؟
صح. كنت بدي زي الفرق لما نيجي نحكي بقناة الجزيرة، بنحكيش تم استشهاد، مقتل، بنحكي مقتل 5 أطفال في قصف صهيوني غرب مدينة غزة. ما بنحكي استشهاد، لأنه العالم الغربي لو إحنا داعين الخبر ما بيعرفش استشهاد، بيعرف مقتل.
طيب خلينا نقول في علامة استفهام على اللي حكيتيه، تمام، وخلينا نشرحه بعدين، مش صحيح 100% الكلام. تمام. الجزيرة يعاب، مش عارفة أنا الجزيرة بتحط هيك ولا لا، بس إذا بتحط هيك أنا بعرف العربية بتحط هيك، فأظن بتحط استشهاد هي. ف العربية بتكتب مقتل. فخلينا بس نشرح هاي النقطة لاحقا لأنها يعني مش بهذه الفكرة، بس ذكرينا نحكيها إن شاء الله. طيب، ألمانيا
إن شاء الله.
تعترف بارتكاب إبادة في ناميبيا خلال فترة الاستعمار وتتعهد بتقديم مساعدات ب1.1 مليار يورو. مين يحدد لي إيش أهم المفردات أو أهم المعلومات في هذا الخبر؟ زي ما عملنا فوق، إيش المعلومات المهمة؟ إيش المعلومات المهمة؟
أريج ألمانيا
ألمانيا صحيح.
ارتكاب إبادة
إبادة.
نمبيبا
طيب.
إن هي فترة الاستعمار
مم.
تقديم مساعدة.
طيب، في حاجة مهمة سبتيها.
تعترف.
ممتاز.
تعترف.
تعترف أهم واحدة. تمام. في فرق بين واحد يعترف وواحد إيش ماله أجبر على شغلة. تمام. طيب، في عنا يعترف كلمتين، admit في confess. مين يقول لي مين فيهم نستخدم وإيش الفرق بينهم؟
Can
سماع.
I? Yes, I think admit because so we use confess, for example, to say something that we did which is bad, for example, or to confess that we love someone. But admit is more suitable here, I think.
طب بتقولي something bad و confess our love، كيف يعني؟ Is confessing our love bad? I mean, it is bad if you confess to a person you're not allowed to confess to. بس يعني عادي في البوليس ديتكشن تيجي confession confess، اسمعهم بيقولوا له confess، admit what you said، confess what you did، admit it، confess it.
Yes, but when we confess, for example, our love, it's something informal. So admit is something more formal. So this is what I am, you know, what I mean here. When we confess our love, for example.
Not related to formal and informal. Yeah.
Miss, can I answer?
The mental acceptance of a crime is admission, whereas the verbal or written in front of another person or body is confession. Admit with crimes and bad things. Confession برضو بتيجي with crimes and bad things. Okay, so basically there is not a really big difference between the two. You can use both confess and admit. The difference, the slight difference between the two is that when you confess, there is nothing prior to that. And by that I mean مثلا أنا كسرت الأباجورة اللي ماما بتحبها، تمام؟ وخبيت آثار الجريمة، وماما يعني مضى الوقت نسيتها وما تذكرتهاش. يوم من الأيام I went there and I confessed to her that I broke her favorite vase or lamp. So I confessed it, although no one, like, there's nothing prior to that. No one found out. I hid the evidence. Admit ماما جياني، تمام، وشايفة ايدي مجروحة مطرح الإزاز، and then she's like, you broke the vase or lamp, didn't you? And at that moment I had to admit it, so I admitted it. Okay, so same act, same thing, but like I said, the difference is in the use of, has someone asked, like, does anyone else know and they are trying to make me admit it, or I'm going to confess without others having proof for it. تمام. So basically Germany here, do you think it admitted it or confessed it? يعني هل محدش كان عارف إنها عاملة إبادة في ناميبيا and then suddenly it confessed what it did, or admitted it?
It admitted. It
Yeah,
admitted.
Good. So it is admit. So Germany admits what? What does it admit?
Committing a genocide in
Committing genocide. Okay, committing genocide in
Namibia.
yeah, and then Germany. Let's read Mariam's. Germany admits the committing genocide in Namibia during the colonial period and pledges 1.1 in aid. I'm going to write that one, and then we're going to fix the mistakes. So Germany admits, like I said, committing. I have a question here. Why do we have converted commas here? إيش لازمتهم هدول؟
تأكيد أو
لا مش تأكيد. لا إيش فايدة ال converted commas؟ إنه هذه على حد قولها، يعني هيك حكت، هي هيك وصفتها إنها جينوسايد، هي وصفتها إبادة. تمام؟ مش أنا بقول يعني مثلا ألمانيا تعترف بارتكاب بين قوسين مجزرة. تمام؟ مجزرة. هم حكوا لما طلعوا في الأخبار قالوا we committed إيش بسموها؟ A massacre. They described it as massacre. So I have to keep it the way they described it. بينفعش يكون هو قال مجزرة وأنا أروح أحولها إيش؟ genocide. فبروح بحط converted commas. تمام؟ ليش؟ Because this is how they described it. This is what they committed. This is what they admitted. Okay? واضح؟ So غالبا the converted commas are to keep what the person said the same way it was said without changing anything. So Germany admits committing genocide in Namibia during the colonial period and pledges 1.1 billion AIDS. في معلومة ناقصة هنا إيش؟ معلومة مهمة جدا. إيش هي؟
تتعهد.
لا.
يورو.
أيوة ممتاز. ليش؟ لأنه طب هو بليون دولار، بليون شيكل، بليون يورو، بليون رينجت، بليون إيش. تمام؟ فهذه بتأثر معانا. وين اليورو على الكيبورد؟ هنفترض إنه مش عارفة وين اليورو. هنفترض إنه دولار عشان أفرجيكم كيف بتنعمل. بنحط العلامة تبعته قبل الرقم كذا. Thank you, Mace. So I'm gonna copy that and put it here. يبقى وين بنحط العلامة تاعت المصاري؟ قبل الرقم. ما بضطرش أكتب بعد هيك، خلاص بينفهم. لو كان مثلا $5 كده. واضح؟ تمام؟
Yes.
طيب. So Germany admits committing genocide in Namibia, sorry. And pledges كده AIDS. ليش فترة الاستعمار مش مهمة هنا؟ مين يحذر؟
لأنه إيش وصل ألمانيا على ناميبيا؟
لأنه apparently like إحنا عنا العرب نفس فكرة المدينة الفرنسية. إحنا العرب مش عارفين إيش العلاقة بين ألمانيا وناميبيا. تمام؟ لكن كجمهور أجنبي هل هو عارف بهاي العلاقة ولا مش عارف؟ أكيد عارف. تمام؟ واضح؟ ممكن يعني خلينا نقول مش الكل عنده معرفة بس غالبا إذا هي وصلت لمرحلة إنه ألمانيا اعترفت، معناته إيش في سابقات كثيرة. يعني زي مثلا لما نقول الاحتلال يعترف بارتكاب مجازر بحق الفلسطينيين، تمام؟ هل فجأة هو من حاله اعترف، ولا ما هو إلنا 1000 سنة قاعدين بنحكي إنه هو قاعد بيرتكب مجازر؟ فطالما هي وصلت لمرحلة الاعتراف تتعهد تقديم مساعدات، يبقى العلاقة بين ألمانيا وناميبيا أكيد معروفة. يبقى اللي بدي أوصل لكم إياه إنه أنت تعامل target audience، تمام، differently from the source audience, and keep in mind that what the source audience knows not necessarily known to the target audience,